Welcome everybody to the Filmmakers Life. This is our interview series where we talk to filmmakers about building a career in filmmaking. And one of the things that I have noticed is that filmmakers seem to think that there is a certain path, and that's you. If you could get on that path, then you could figure out how to be a filmmaker. And I think that it's absolutely not true. And what it is that every single filmmaker just has their own particular individual path, and that's it. So we can take what works for us, and then we create our own way. And I don't know why filmmaking is like that, but that's the way filmmaking is. It's not something where there's like, this is the path, um, and follow that. And maybe there are certain ones, like starting out in the mailbox room of a studio or something like that, being a delivering the mail. But basically, as an independent filmmaker, it's pretty individualized. So welcome. I get to introduce today Kevin Pontuti, and Alexandra Loreth. And we have been working together for I think about 3 years. I'm not very good with time. And we started working on a feature film and then switched when Alexandra brought to Kevin's attention a very well known text, well known maybe at the college graduate level text. It's The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and it's considered the first feminist writing in America, and it has been put on screen many, many, many times. So that's where we're going to start our story today. And welcome, Kevin and Alexandra. And so normally but I've had you as my guest before, and we went back to the beginning and how you started. But this time I thought, given that the film just released on Tuesday, it would be really great to focus on the film and this whole process that you've been through, and and let people hear what it's like to go through the process of making your first feature film. So I'm actually going to go back to when we first met, and I think I met you when I handed you an award at a film festival where you had won a prize for one of your short films, and at the time you were bopping around the world, going from one festival to another to another to another. And can you go back to those days when you were working on shorts and on the festival circuit around the world, and tell us a little bit about your short films?
So
Joanne.
thanks, Joanne. It's obviously it's wonderful to be here again. And yeah, so I think we met, and it's been 4.5 years, not just three. It's been 4.5. And it was September. It was right after we moved to Stockton, and so it was that first fall we were here, and we had a series of 3 short films that were all kind of fairly similar genre, kind of connected loosely, set in the Middle Ages, that we were kind of touring around with at the time. Onere, Pescare, and Vanita were the titles of the 3. Each of them were about 10 minutes long. One character in really unique, spooky, weird situations. And I know that Peter Galante is on here, who was a big part of those. And yeah, so making the short
Hi,
film.
Peter.
Yeah. Making the short films was really a great exploration in some ideas we were working on, and they all stand alone, but they're all kind of loosely connected, same kind of world, same character, which is Alexandra. And yeah, it was great. We really were able to put those shorts to use for networking, building connections. Obviously that going to the festivals is how we met, Joanne. And There's a great opportunity to, travel internationally and again, connect with other collaborators that, we still collaborate with today, and also lay the groundwork, I think, for some other festival stuff. So, I don't know what you maybe want to add there, but
I mean, yeah, that's kind of it. And I mean, it was just a really fun time. It was like the first 2 years that we were together. We were like doing all this fun creative work together, traveling. So I don't know, the shorts were, I think, a really important part for us personally in our filmmaking. If for nothing else, just to like get us excited about things. And I think where we were personally, and like Kay mentioned, like working with Peter and our other friends, Ed, and some of our other friends in our hometown, like that was just so exciting and so fun. And I think that's the part of it that made us like want to do more of it.
And what was your favorite festival that you attended?
I got to meet Bill Nye at the Nevada City Film Festival, who is just my childhood hero. So I'm getting emotional thinking about it.
Oh my
that was
gosh.
pretty great.
But Alexandra's like a secret scientist, you know. I didn't
Wanna
know
be.
this.
Yeah.
On her way.
On her way, yeah. So Bill Nye, the science guy.
Yeah, so that was a fun one. And I just like getting up in the mountains. I'm trying to think of
Italy.
some of our, we went to some amazing ones, and Italy and Ireland was a lot of fun too. That's what kind of
Beloit's one of our favorites.
Did you go to Chile? Was that
No,
one?
we didn't get to go to Chile. Which is really unfortunate. It was at a time, it seems like there's, October has always been our festival month. Like, there's festivals that go on like all year long, but for whatever reason, October is when we get overbooked. And it's just, I don't know if it's Halloween. I don't know if it's what that cycle is. Fall's a good time for festivals because it's getting cold and people want to get kind of cozy. And then there's another run usually, after, in February or something, but like inevitably October, we're like, we have too many festivals and not enough travel bandwidth, or lately no traveling at all.
Right. Yeah. Because in between there, you became the director of Media X at the University of Pacific, which, I mean, that is a job. That's like a big.
It's a great job.
It's a great job, and it's huge piece of work. So
I love it though. It's an amazing place and amazing people, and
yeah, and it's just been interesting watching you balance. And I feel as though I often talk about this, that for filmmakers balancing their work, that's the pay the bills work. I mean, I think your job is a bit more than that, but pay the bills work and your creative work, and then also to have a life, that is a balance I think we all have to master on some level, and it's a challenge. That is a real challenge, but you have done it with a lot of grace, so it's really impressive. Would you call your shorts horror films?
I kind of think so. I think that I think they're genre benders in a way. Like they're they're kind of horror and mystery in a way. I think would be, they're not jump scary, bloody. Well, there's sometimes blood, but and there's some grossness in a couple of them. But I think psychological. It's a tricky one, right? I think it's so I'm just gonna say yes. I think so, but not in a
horrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like we have a little bit more freedom with the genre because they're short films. And I think that, I mean, some of our shorts, I mean, all three of them, but Vanita in particular, that is one that when we go to festivals, it is perceived so differently by different audience members. And that's like one of the coolest things to see, especially with that film in particular. So I think without having to kind of figure out a commercial, I guess, strategy behind the genre of the short films. They can really be almost anything.
Yes,
Which is kind of cool about those. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking, I think, is because when you're making shorts and then you transition to features, and your feature is a horror, you've made it as a horror film. I'm just wondering if it's kind of valuable to practice in the genre, before you go to a feature. I just wonder, if that's useful.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the main reasons why we did those 3 shorts. And if anything, those 3 shorts were like horror that we had to tone down a little bit for the yellow wallpaper. So yeah, so like that was the fun part. We got to do everything that we kind of really wanted to do, push things a little bit, go to the extreme a little bit with the short films, and then tone certain elements down for the feature film where we thought it was necessary, or where artistically it made sense. So I do think it made a lot of sense for us to do the short films before the feature.
And I think also doing the short films are all, like I said, we're set in the, Middle Ages, roughly. So doing doing period shorts, with costumes and the, kind of creating this kind of, time period, even though it's a different time period than is in the yellow wallpaper, going through that process, I think, and I think Peter would agree that we learned a lot there, on, both what we could get away with, and what was kind of necessary, right? Like what we could, what the camera would see versus what, how we could, especially on a, doing things on a relatively low budget.
Relatively low.
Yeah. Relatively.
I think we really learned how to kind of shoot, for, our budget level and our resources and be able to kind of give it that, that period feel, without, breaking the bank totally.
Right. And I should have asked before, if is there anywhere that people can see the shorts, or any one of the shorts maybe that you could put in the chat? No? Oh my gosh, are they
They're
like
all secret.
away? They're all secret, locked away in a closet.
You have to send me like a check, and then I'll they're just kidding.
How it goes.
Well, we've been hesitant to just release them online. They really, I mean, all filmmakers say that their films are made for like a big screen, but these 3 really, I think really it's a completely different experience, and they were really designed to be seen, on a big screen with an audience. And so we just haven't really felt the need to, we send out screeners to curators and, festival programmers and stuff like that, but we just haven't really put them out there for everyone. And, but I think, and the other reason too, is I think we want to make more of them, in that series. And I keep thinking about a way to kind of eventually package those. Cause there were another like 3 or 4 we had kind of mapped out, that we are, pretty much had ready to shoot, before we decided to switch. And part of that was when we met you and started talking about the value of moving into the feature world. And that's Harry, by the way.
That's the assistant.
Yeah.
A hairy cat.
I guess just to add on to that, in a way, I see the short films as like an unfinished project. So when we'll get to finish all that and what we are planning to do, I don't know, but I think we'll know when we know.
The great thing about doing the shorts is also that we, each of those we pretty much did in a weekend. Like they were, I mean, there was more planning and scouting, but it's something that you could shoot in 2 or 3 days, sometimes one day, really. with some pickup shots if we had to hang somebody from a tree or something. But you know, for the most part, you know, there's something really nice about that sort of, you know, it's I don't know, when I think about it from an art background, I think about it as like almost doing a drawing versus doing a full painting, you know, or you know, it's being able to have these, you know, with a feature, you know, the old Wallpaper has been 4 years, you know, over 4 years in terms of, you know, from concept to completion. But what I love about doing things, what's
Because
that?
completion was a year
Oh,
ago, but distribution
right. In
is another
marketing.
whole mountain.
But the shorts can be a little more, you know, easy to navigate and get out there and have that kind of creative opportunity.
So originally, you were thinking about staying in that kind of Middle Ages world and going with a feature film. What made you switch from that concept to the yellow wallpaper? What was the decision process for that?
I think the biggest one was having such big ideas for the kind of medieval themed set film that we wanted to do. They had written the script, oh my gosh, finished it right before we met. So probably about 6 years ago. Such big ideas and such high hopes for that film, and wanting to do it justice for ourselves. And knowing that we, like, being realistic about the fact that we just weren't there yet. And that wasn't like a negative thing. That just provided us with this opportunity to do something else before that. And that's when we when we started looking at the yellow wallpaper, that's when we started thinking about how can we do something that makes sense as the step leading up to this other project. And we didn't want to do something super similar. We didn't want to do, but we still wanted to be able to explore similar themes, a period piece, and maybe working internationally, because those were all things that we planned to do with the future film.
Yeah, I think that's it's a very interesting process that I see so many filmmakers. I talk to filmmakers all the time, and they often have as their first feature a film that's just really too big to start with. Oh, yesterday I was talking to a writer who was like, "Well, I can raise $5 million," and I said, "Oh, great! You know, $5 million film. That's a really great budget for a feature." He said, "No, no, 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 no. That's seed money. I want to make a $40 million film." And I was like, "Okay." And it's just more common, I think, than people would think, that filmmakers have an idea that the truth is they're not going to be able to pull off, you know, and so to kind of be willing to reduce that idea and come up with something that is workable when you don't have $1 million and you don't have rich parents who are gonna just, you know, hand you the money, and you don't have any of those things, you know. So and the funny thing is, I don't think I've ever said this before, but the funny thing is that when you have a very tiny amount of money, the only thing you have left to use is creativity. And I think that's what most independent filmmakers really want. They really want to make something that's a great creative project, you
Yeah,
know? And when you really have hardly any money,
you have to.
you gotta be really creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even more than that, like for us, it forced us to get creative, and it also forced us to like reach out to so many other creative people in our lives and to ask for help and collaboration. And like that's really cool too. And I think if we could just we had like all the money in the world and we could have just gone out and just paid whoever to do this or to do that, we would have ended up with a completely different project than we do now, because we have so many people that are so special to us that put in such amazing hard work into this project, and I think it shows. Yeah.
So, how did you begin the process? So, Alexandra came and said, I want to make a movie. What did you do? Did you panic? No.
I don't think it was panic. I think it was
Excitement.
yeah, which turned to panic. But,
really quickly, really, as it usually does in this household.
the panic didn't, I mean, we had a good couple of months with no panic, and then 4 years of panic.
Nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, once we kind of decided, like, we'd each read it a couple of times, and
Peter got on a plane and flew out here, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, yeah, Peter came out. I think we had a rough draft of the script. We kind of went through it a couple of times. And then I know it was like when Peter was out here, we kind of had the breakthrough on how to kind of handle the wallpaper, which I think was one of the things,
yes,
I especially was kind of struggling with in terms of like how we might, because there's so many different ways you could visualize it, right? That this woman trapped in the wallpaper. And, but when we kind of came across the idea of the gardens being kind of like the, kind of like the inside of the wallpaper, and or vice versa, this kind of, more of a dreamscape that we weren't going to use a bunch of visual effects for, or special effects even. And that was a big part of the process, I think. And then it seemed like things kind of came together a bit more quickly in terms of the writing.
Could you give everybody the log line of the film?
Take it away.
I haven't pitched in a while. A young mother is suffering from postpartum depression, is taken by her physician husband to a country estate for arrest treatment. And it's pretty much where she starts to kind of imagine that she sees a woman trapped in the wallpaper that she must free. That's a little butchered.
Close. I couldn't have done better, but yeah.
That was good. So it's set in the 19th century, and it's this young couple, and we now would call what she's suffering from postpartum depression, right? But they didn't know that. They didn't have that back then. So
Hysteria.
Hysteria, right. It was called hysteria. I think everything, if you were a woman and you were sick, was called hysteria, right? So how did you transform the story that was written in the 19th century? It's very much a story that happens in somebody's head, right? It's incredibly interior. It's not about a lot of dialogue. It's not about a lot of interaction between people. It's all happening in this woman's head as she slowly devolves into madness. But how did you work on your adaptation from the story to a script that would actually speak to 21st century audiences?
I think that we're not the first ones to adapt this, right? So there's been, many, whether it's film, whether it's theater, other ways. But so I think the ones we had seen up till now were pretty theatrical. There's a great BBC version where, I think it's maybe like an hour long, and we enjoyed that, but it was heavy dialogue and heavy. Just everything was kind of externalized. And so I think we really went into it, thinking about, really creative ways and contemporary ways to kind of, show the interior of her world and the interior of the wallpaper, from and so we used, contemporary cameras, contemporary color, contemporary, somewhat contemporary, like music and sound were a big part. I think of how we kind of explored it. The thing that we probably explored the least of was the dialogue. Like we really, the short story is all told through a first person kind of narrator, in terms of like writing, her writing in the diary. And so we had a little bit of that, but we really tried to kind of stay out of that, like entire voiceover sort of approach that we have seen, in some of the other versions.
And yeah, I think that work of coming up with something that's visual, that is in somebody's head, is the most amazing thing to me about the film, and the really amazing accomplishment that you have made this really wonderful film that manages to make contemporary the story. And I think that there are elements of the story that really are contemporary.
Mm.
But I think that the former adaptations made it a little old fashioned. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? What were the elements of the story that were contemporary, that really speak to the 21st century, do you think?
Um, Gosh, I mean, pretty much all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on whether you are willing to see it that way or not. I think, thank God we as a like society in the past like 5-10 years, that seems to be pushing it, have been more open about mental health, and the seriousness and reality of mental health. I think women historically have not been listened to by their doctors. I've had health issues. Joanne, I know you've like had health. We've all dealt with this. And, I guess now we are starting to realize that this like is even more of an issue for non-white women. And that's something that we've been ignoring for a really long time. So there's like layers and layers and layers to it all. And I think, I don't know, I was just thinking
I think the
about,
Me Too, to me, the Me Too movement has also, I feel as though, well, your film, you were working on it as the Me Too movement was
Mm.
really coming forth. And
yeah.
there are, so much of the film to me looks as though it was written for the Me Too movement, even though it was written in the 19th century.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing. I assume that like most of our audience are people who really like the story, love the story, have read it before, and go into it watching it that way. But I would love to hear from someone who hasn't read the story before watching it, or
Mm-hmm.
didn't know anything about the original text, or the history of the story, because I would love to get their kind of like input and how they see the story, the way that it's told, through film,
Well, that's
without
great,
that
because
context.
hopefully we have some people here who have not read the story, don't know what on earth we're talking about, and and we'll ask them to watch the film and then get back to us with that particular take, because I feel as though there really are going to be two audiences. There's going to be the audience who's very familiar with the story. I mean, that is a story that has raving fans, just so everybody knows. It's a big deal in literary circles, in academia. It's a very big deal in America. And then there are going to be audiences who've never seen it before, never heard of it before, don't know anything about it. And many of those audiences are going to be partly people who like horror films, but then this is not a film for horror fans. As you said, it doesn't have jump scares. I don't think there's any blood in the yellow wallpaper whatsoever.
I
So
think so.
we cut
Really.
that, we cut that out.
And so it's certainly not. I feel as though, you and I have talked about horror so much, and elevated horror, feminist horror, so much. But the truth is, the general opinion is that horror is something about jump scares, blood, gore, and all of that stuff. And this film has got nothing to do with that on any level at all. So, but I don't think it's a film that's going to disappoint horror fans.
Right. I don't. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think it'll be. Yeah, I'm really excited to see. I had one of my colleagues who's definitely not a horror film, who hasn't read the story. I know he watched it last night and loved it. And but I told him, I said, actually don't read the story first, and read it after, because then we can have a different kind of conversation. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the horror. I mean, I think that there is a great community around horror that is, I think, I mean, there's all ranges, but there's a real supportive group too. And I think that there's a lot of, a lot of young people who are into horror that are, I think very accepting of different perspectives and different, what horror can be. And I think that's, that makes me really optimistic around, these sorts of things. And, but yeah, I think there's gonna be people that are, going into it maybe with one idea, and, and maybe it comes out being a little bit different, and hopefully they enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we give horror fans enough credit. I think there are like horror fans that do love like blood, guts, and gore, but I think like a lot of horror fans, like they want smart horror and horror that has layers, to use that word again. So like that's been a really kind of exciting thing to realize as we've been working on the film.
Yeah, I think that I know for myself, I think of myself as somebody who is not a horror fan.
Yeah, me too.
I had to be persuaded and sort of back into it. And because when I was about 17, my parents went out one night, and when they came home, apparently every single door in the house was open and every light was on. And I had been watching something or other on TV that obviously scared me to death, and I just stopped. I was like, I can't watch horror films. So years later, I had a boyfriend who loved horror. Actually, he's a really good. So Ben Yenny of Mutiny Pictures, where you have the film distributed, he has talked about how the reason that horror is such a popular genre and thrillers are such a popular genre is because what scares us is culturally international, whereas what makes us laugh is culturally specific. And I find that a very useful way of thinking about it. So it doesn't matter if we're Japanese or if we're from Greenland, we're all scared by the same things. I think that's a really interesting proposition and something to think about. We're all scared by the same things. So what is it that's so scary in the yellow wallpaper, in your yellow wallpaper? What is it that's so scary? Because it is scary.
Go ahead.
Well, I think the this idea of being trapped, not listened to, being belittled, gaslit, all of these things, are, and that it could happen to a lot of people. And then I also think that there's the way in which those things are portrayed. And I think this goes back to that international idea, is that, a lot of scary stuff can be really translated visually or through sound. When you think about like what makes a scary movie scary, a lot of times it isn't the dialogue, right? It's it's the camera, it's the all those the sound work and that sort of thing, which translates. Yeah, I think that that's the scary, the most scary things to me is like that idea of being kind of trapped and losing your mind and not listened to.
Yeah, I think that being trapped is central to feminist horror. I think we've learned that in the last few years. Alexandra, what is, because you have, oh my God, you have a big role in this film. Being the lead in a feature film is already big. But in a feature film where there's really one character who we're seeing everything through her eyes, you know, what do you think is scary for your character? What's
Yeah, I mean, when you first asked that question, the first thing that came to mind was like claustrophobia, which is, the same thing that you two kind of said about being trapped, but I feel like it has a slightly different
yes,
connotation. And then also similar to what you two mentioned, like this idea, I don't know if everyone feels this way, but like this kind of fear of like, if someone's telling you you're crazy, how do you say like, no, I'm not crazy, and have someone believe you? Like, that's kind of scary. I know like gaslighting is kind of a buzzword, and you mentioned that too, but I think this is like a very real extreme kind of exploration of that. And I think it's scary to like not recognize yourself. And I think that's a lot of like what Jane goes through as a character in this film. And so to grapple with this idea of like wanting to prove to everyone that you're not crazy, and at the same time be this person that you don't recognize and don't really understand, and having to deal with both of those at the same time, like that's really scary. That makes me sad. Like that makes me so sad for her.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when you talk about gaslighting, I think that has really become a very, very, very commonly used word today.
Yeah.
And and what is gaslighting? Gaslight. Well, from the movie Gaslight, the original movie Gaslight, where the victim, the wife in that case, is constantly being told by her super charming, apparently very well educated, very good looking husband that she is not experiencing what she's experiencing. She is not seeing what she's seeing. She is not feeling what she's feeling. That is what gaslighting is. And so one of the things I think that is really appalling for Jane is the polite middle class context. I keep thinking about this, so I'm going to say it out loud. So I have a very dear friend who wrote a very powerful article. If I can find it, I'll post it in the chat. But wrote a very powerful article about her experience of an extreme form of racism at Town and Country magazine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I said to her, when I read the article, I said, there's something even more horrifying about racism and sexism in this ultra polite context. So in the Yellow Wallpaper, the gaslighting is happening almost. I think in one scene you have white gloves on. Isn't that correct? No? Did I imagine
Yes.
that?
Mhm.
Yes. One scene I have white gloves on, one scene I have black gloves on. So I had to think about it for a second.
So, here you are, you're this upper middle class lady. Your husband is a doctor. He is in love with you. He is wanting to take care of you. He is trying his best. And yet, you
Yeah.
know, that is it just it's like layer upon layer upon layer of terrifyingness. 'Cause you can't sort of say, oh, this is a scene in a prison, and these people are clearly psychopaths or something. It's like this. And I think that you directed that very well, where the husband, there's nothing about him that would, you're not like, oh, he's a violent man, or he's, or anything like that. He is 100% convinced that he is doing the best for his wife that he possibly could do.
and should do, right? I mean, I think that, I think the other scary part with that is, she's losing her identity and losing her dreams of being a writer, and this, and just, it's like, you can watch as society is kind of taking that away from her. And I think that's super scary, and adds a lot to it also. But yeah, it's not like he's, like I said, beating her or what, but it's just ingrained in society and his role and these roles that they've fallen into.
Yes, yes. So, speaking of your directing, I posted the most recent review in the chat, and I said in the email I sent out this morning, he looked at all these different pieces of the film. He looked at the story, he looked at the adaptation, he looked at the acting. He spoke very highly of Alexandra's performance, which rightfully so. He spoke about, I'm not sure if he spoke about the costumes, but he spoke about the sound. You spoke about the composer, but how could you explain? I know that there are people listening who are looking forward to making their own first feature films, but so how do you manage all of that? How did you deal with all of that in making?
A really good question.
Email and spreadsheets. I mean, I think that, kind of having first of all, working with really good people, I think that makes it, that's a big, and people that you trust. I think that that's a really important thing. And we were very fortunate to have some really, dear friends and collaborators that we had a good shorthand kind of communication with almost. And but then I think a lot of it was, trying to do, and we did this fairly successfully, not quite as successfully as I would have liked, but to have like kind of clear pre-production documents and plans and storyboards and, concept art. And, I think the more that you can kind of have like these tools that help you kind of share the vision out. Like we had, I know our costume designer, Kathy McClellan, who I work, with here. She put together these amazing, she made a few of the costumes that we took with us to Ireland, but then we knew we were going to source costumes over there. But her and I kind of worked on this, this kind of really, I thought it was a pretty great document with like a guide for what, how Jane's, wardrobe would change throughout the story. And how, at different points of her kind of coming unhinged, or you could see a progression, both in her character, but also through like, the wardrobe and all of that. And that document was just, just so important that we had that when we were in Ireland, right? So that was an example of some really good pre-production that we did. And, a lot happens pretty fast, and the scale of doing a feature, normally I draw everything out and I have all this concept art, and we found ourselves doing a lot more of that on the fly. And, but still being able to do that, I think was really beneficial to be able to do it on the fly and quickly. And, so a lot of it is, it's leading the team and trying to figure out what everybody's excited about and keeping people excited, and that ebbs and flows for sure.
So once the film was finished, and then it premiered at CineQuest about a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
This month?
Almost exactly, like a year and a week ago.
Yeah.
Yes. When it came to the process of delivering the film to a distributor, was that a lot of work? Was that was it when you, because you really handled post-production yourself. You had a team, but
Mm-hmm.
you were you were the post-production supervisor, as it were. When you finished the film, was it pretty much ready to be delivered to the distributor, or was there a gap that did you have to jump through hoops to get to the point where you could deliver it?
We had a few hoops. We had what we screened at CineQuest was pretty much finished, a pretty much finished film. There was still some audio work that we needed to do, and I think maybe after seeing it at CineQuest, there's a few color things that we went back and tweaked. Our sound designer educator did an amazing job with the sound. He also did a 5.1. He built the soundscape in 5.1 surround sound, so that we would have that if we wanted it. And so there was some work. At CineQuest, we just had the stereo mix done, and then Ed continued to work through, it was like last April, May, June, maybe even a little bit of July, getting that 5.1 mix finalized. But that was kind of it. I mean, and then breaking out the stems, some of this stuff, I'm still not sure exactly what they all mean, but having different layers or tracks for different parts of the sound, so that they could break it up, and if they ever need it, when they go out to international sales and stuff.
You mean for like music and M&E?
Effects, music and effects.
Yeah.
That took a little work. And then there's all the paperwork. The paperwork's always a lot of fun, right?
How long did that take?
Forever.
No comment.
We're still doing it.
Oh yeah.
No. We're in a really good place. And but there's a lot, there's a lot to kind of sort out, and a lot of getting the PR materials, getting the
because now then it goes on to marketing, and then it's
I mean, we have a kind of like our own in-house marketing agency. And so we do all the website work, the social media work, we had, oh my God, our distributor did an amazing trailer. Josh Doak, who's you've had on the show. Boy, I saw that trailer and almost cried. I was so happy. I really, really felt like he really got something for us. Yeah. And I know, and we had talked a lot about it, and talked a lot about, and I was like, take your time. And then I'm like, how's it coming? And then I'm like, and then he's like, and literally, I think I had a typo that I asked him to change, and that was it. Wow. It was like, it just hit hard on that. He knew what he totally hit it. So that was amazing. So I'm just very thankful.
I don't think I was fully understanding that many distributors, especially in the micro budget world, don't make trailers for their clients' films. So I think that not only is it great to have a trailer, but to have a great trailer is that's another thing. So that's really great. And I'm gonna open it up for questions, and I hope that everybody jumps up. And I always like to have you raise your hand on camera, or at least digitally raise your hand. But I'd love it if you would come and ask a question. Chris, yay! Thank you so much. Come and ask a question.
First of all, just congratulations. To finish a project is unbelievable. To get from point A to point Z, my God, congratulations to both of you. Just spectacular.
Thank you, Chris.
My question is, there is something I call a producer's dilemma, where you're starting to get funding, and you get enough funding to make it happen, but you don't get enough funding that you want, because you always want more funding, and you go into production. And I'm wondering how you transitioned with this film from that point where, okay, we've got enough to make it happen, would like a lot more. How do we get there, and how does that work? How did that work in terms of when you made choices, how you made choices? I don't believe you made choices on the fly, by the way. I think you had this core built, and you knew where you were going. You had to. Yeah. But I'm just curious about that. With the funding and the way you structured it, when did that moment happen when you said, we can make this, but my God, now what are we going to do and how are we going to make it? And what do you do creatively with choices based on funding?
I think one of the things, we had identified at one point, like a target, we had a target. We were like, okay, this amount is what we're gonna, that we have in cash, right? And then there's the in-kind parts of things that, added value to that, to the whole project. We knew going in that, the beauty of this story was it was primarily 4 characters, 1 house. And we needed to kind of make it work, within that, and that was so there's a part of it, I think, from the day we read the story or reread the story and started talking about it, we kind of knew what some of our limitations were going to be and how we were going to manage those. So really, there was the really early on part of like figuring that out. We raised enough money for the production, or so I thought. But I literally was making producer to producer calls from Ireland fundraising, because we were already, I knew we were going a little bit over, but I was like, okay, we're coming up short here. And so there were some really generous people that that helped, so producing and directing at the same time. And then, there was the plan that, okay, once we had production done, there was a couple different paths we could go with post. One path would be to apply, in which we did. We applied for finishing grants, through, different agencies. We ended up going with more of an in-house approach. And we did some fundraising for post-production, to cover like our sound and music and the things that we couldn't do, internally. And then, as you probably have seen, we're still fundraising, for things like marketing, for, and publicity, and to help get the film out there. So, there was definitely a tiered kind of approach and path to kind of find out like, well, what, we have enough to get this far, and then we'll, but we always knew that we were going to be fundraising throughout the process, and looking for different kinds of investments or donations. So yeah,
and I think if I could add to that, one of the important parts of like what the question that you asked, the answer that you gave was, at some point along the way, we realized that we were probably going to have to make compromises on some of the things that we wanted. And at a certain point, I think making compromises kind of became second nature. It didn't hurt as much, but I could totally see how someone might not want to make a compromise. And that could be, the thing that keeps them from actually getting a project finished. Or maybe you don't want to make 100 compromises, and that's a fair thing to want. So I think I'm really grateful that I think out of desperation, maybe at one point we did get to the point where we're like, we just have to be okay with the fact that some things aren't going to go exactly the way we want them to go. We aren't going to get everything that we aren't going to be able to shoot every single scene that we want to shoot. And I'm really proud of us for being able to do that.
Oh yeah. And I hope this is all right to say, but anyway, one day you were sort of getting to think about, okay, post-production, what's next? And we got on the phone and did this back of the napkin budgeting on post-production, and I'll never forget. But so we came up with the number $38,000, and I was like, okay, 38,000. We need another $38,000 to complete post. And then Kevin said, "I'm not doing any more fundraising." And so the decision was made about which path to go, which meant a lot more weight on his shoulders. And so, but that was a very, very significant moment, because you have two choices. you can go and raise, you know, however many tens of thousands of more dollars, or as Alexandra was saying, you can make compromises, and and to me, the question is, are you willing to get your film finished? You know, I just moved back to Florida, and I was talking to an old friend of mine yesterday, and he just made the comment, "Oh, you can't get a film made in Florida." I was like, "Well, we've already done that." You know, so but you know, I think it's a certain mindset, you know, that it takes to be able to make the decision this film is going to get finished.
Just a quick follow-up. My guess is, I've seen the trailer, haven't seen the whole film. Trailer's unbelievable. My God, it's just off the charts, incredible. Did you find that your creativity was pushed in ways that was helpful based on budget? I mean, as you're making a film and you don't get this amount, you get this amount, then you have to figure out how to make it work within this thing. And it's all about creativity. You mentioned that, Joanne, and I'm curious if you found that with this film. Your creativity was pushed, but some choices actually helped the film in regards to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, I'll let you say, I was going to say compromise. I was talking about making compromises. That's not like a bad word to me in my mind anymore. And a lot of those compromises ended up working in our favor. But go ahead with what you were going to say.
I mean, there's, you know, there's some things I still would have loved to have gotten, you know, and there's always gonna be a part of me that, you know, wishes we had, you know, this other thing or that, you know, but you learn to kind of let go, you know, and to focus on what you do have. I will say that one of my absolute favorite scenes of the film was something that we literally came up with on the fly, you know, that was just, you know, having these moments, huh?
Which scene was that?
It's where Jane's crawling through the gardens in front of the bushes with the wallpaper and the, but that was something that really just kind of like just on the spot sort of thing that, so we did have the opportunity to find things, and that, you know, and we shot this thing really fast, and it was, you know, it was definitely not an easy, I don't think any film, you know, production's easy, but this was definitely not what I would think was easy. And, but yeah, I think that, yeah, there are definitely creative things that came up.
Shout out to Peter Galante, by the way, who probably had to do the most with the least and did a great job doing it. A really great job. All the art
direction,
yeah.
You know, is Peter and just, I mean.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, and that gave us so many opportunities, you know, with the wallpaper, the location, the props, like all of that art direction gave us the opportunity to really find some wonderfully nuanced, you know, scenes and images. And yeah, I mean, just, phew.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Does anybody else have a question before we close up? So I just want to say, yeah, if anybody has a question, speak up. Speak now or forever hold your peace. We would love to ask you to rent the film. I put the Amazon link there, and watch the film and review the film. That would really be helpful. And what was that about the first 48 hours?
It's like the first 48 to 72 hours is when the algorithm really gets dialed, you know, and so the more people that watch it all the way to the end, you can watch it multiple times to the end, and then leave a review. With Amazon, you can't leave a review unless you've watched the film. So, but those reviews tweak the algorithm, and the more we can get in these first like 48 to 20, you know, 72 hours. We know that, you know, even this weekend, I mean, obviously, you know, I think there's different, you know, it's like the first 48 hours and it's the first week, and then it's the first, you know, all that data somehow does fun stuff.
Somehow adds up to something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and as we also said, we would love to hear from, maybe if you're writing a review, if you can say, I didn't know anything about the story, and this
Mhm.
was new to me, because Kay and Alexandra would love to hear about that. So we're gonna close up. I want to just thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to work with you both. And anybody who would like to talk to me about working with me and getting your films made, I've put my calendar there in the chat. Um, Oops, somebody is just, there's always somebody who arrives right when we finish, and must have got the time wrong or something. But
Oh, it's my mom.
oh, it's your mom. Okay, mom, you've missed the whole thing.
But we have it recorded.
We have it recorded, which is good for us, because often we forget to record. But so yeah, if you're interested in working with me and getting your film made, somebody wrote to me today and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be working with you on your seminar." And I wrote back and I said, I clearly did not explain myself very well. This is not a seminar. This is getting your movie made and getting it distributed. So that's what we do over here at Filmmaker Success. But you are such a pleasure to work with.
Oh,
And
thank you. Same.
it's just
We
so,
love it.
so gratifying to see the film come out and the fabulous trailer and, everything. So, yeah, watch the film.
Hi, Cheryl.
It will be scary. So beware.
Beware.
It will be scary. And we will see you all next time. We'll be back on the Filmmaker's Life in 2 weeks from today. And well, you're on our mailing list now, so you hear about our stuff. I'll be teaching a class on April the 11th because this moment that we were talking about going from shorts to making features is a big deal. It's a big, big step to make. So I'm teaching that class on April the 11th, and I look forward to seeing you there. All right, bye.
Bye.